when I was growing up, my parents came to the UK in the 60s, so well before I was born, and neither of them had been educated to any great level. My mother finished what was high school then at the age of about 14, and my father finished at about 16 or 18. So for both of them, education was very much a key to progression, socially and to moving up. So my mother was sort of the more ambitious one, and she made sure I could read at the age of about 4. I do remember still her going through the alphabet with me and teaching me to read. So I was reading the newspaper when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I distinctly remember reading about the 7 Day War, I think it was, and when tanks were moving from Israel. And I remember reading it. And I couldn't pronounce Egypt. It was Egiput, and we were very literal and very excited about watching tanks move. So that's just to illustrate that the reading was a fundamental skill my parents made sure I had. So when I went into the school system, I was already several years ahead of my peers, and that culminated in me getting a library ticket when I was about 5 years old and being let loose, at which point I was free to read anything I wanted to read, which I did. So books were always a fundamental part of growing up. And we had what was called the West Indian Reader series, which my mother remembered from her own elementary school days and brought back into the house. And they're a series of books by a company called Nelson, and I remember they had like a wine red cover, and they're still available somewhere. And those books had like an anthology of like Charles Mary Lamb Shakespeare. They had poetry, Shakespearean sonnets. They had a little history, summaries. So we would read those too and get a good general knowledge grounding at the same time. But always it was read, read, read. And my mother used to bribe us, I remember, with trips into central London when like a shopping expedition. And being kids, of course, when you're like 8 years old, going to the shops isn't much fun. But she would say, "Look, I'll get you a book if you come along," and it was always the acceptable bribe for us. So just as nowadays kids want computer games or toys, we were happy with books. So what she would do is she'd go to the department store, leave us in the book section, and then she'd go off and go and get like glasses and flatware and whatever else she wanted to get, and come back half an hour later, and we're still in the book section finding books to read. So always encouraged to read, and reading for pleasure was very much part of growing up. But it also enabled us to find answers to questions ourselves. That was also very much a fundamental thing. If you wanted to know something, you don't just ask your parents. My dad would always say, there's a dictionary, look up the word you want to find. So always reading was very much part of growing up for me, definitely.